And let me tell you what I think about that. So the idea is simply this, right? So the idea is that when you go into a game and you have a service like Xbox Live, the only thing that differentiates you from the other person, in theory, is your skill to play the game. So if you jump into Call of Duty, if you're somebody that just started playing the game and you played with somebody who's played for a year, the idea is the person that's played for a year is probably going to roast you because they're just much more experienced with the game. And if you want to get that good, you're probably going to have to spend that kind of time with the game as well. But with the free-to-play model has really challenged that in many ways. So the competition element has kind of changed, right? Now, what I like about what Maze said is that, you know, the subscription model gets old. This was something I hadn't thought. The subscription model gets old, probably because I don't belong to any of these MMO-wise. But the subscription model gets old because it's the similar kind of playing field. Because there is a kind of unified experience for everyone. The differentiation that's allowed always has kind of a cap on it. Versus, you know, I'll give you a great example for me. I play Tribes Ascend, and I play it with some frequency. I played the original Tribes. I played Tribes 2. So when I jump into Tribes Ascend, I have not yet paid $1 of my own money to play that game. I've had little gift cards and things like that came from, like, going to PAX East, for example. And I've also used my experience to buy everything that I've purchased thus far. And, you know, that's not easy to come by either, folks, because let's face it, if I were going to buy something like a chain gun that was like 80,000 experience points, or I could just throw down $2. You know what I mean? It's like what value is your time? Do you place in your time? But here's the thing. Do I win every match I go into? No. In fact, I don't win most of them. Right? But do I have an awesome amount of fun? And am I competitive? Yes, I am. I'm competitive. So, you know, there are people out there that are not I guess, satisfied with an experience until they can win every time. That is one kind of gaming, right? But I don't think, and Maze also brought up the idea of chess and kind of how competitively that game really works. But the idea is, you know, video games are not chess. And at the end of the day, one of the reasons chess is so novel is because life is not chess. That there are kind of unfair notions of how things work. So are there, you know, is there a 12-year-old out there who just bought Tribes and he's got dad's credit card and he's just swiping and buying everything and then he blows me up in one shot? Absolutely, right? No question about it. But you know what? I'm cool with that. Because for every one of those guys, there's somebody just like me right down the road just trying to be better and not spend $1 of their money, and I still have fun. It still puts me in the range of level that I am. Currently, I think I'm only like a level 13 or something like that. But it only puts me between 10 and 15, right? So I'm not playing beginners, and I'm not playing the people that are just so freaking good it's unbelievable, right? Or that have had the game for forever. Now, if you get to that level and you still suck balls, that's a different story, right? I mean, you're terrible and you got bad problems. My point is, folks, I like the idea of the free-to-play model, if and only if it can kind of balance in the way that you know, that Maze is talking about, but not to the point of making everybody the same. It's something that really does still count on your skill, and therefore should never really get boring. And I haven't found Tribes to get boring yet. They keep introducing new game modes, so it really is fun. And you know, by the way, any of you that do want to play, all you have to do is send me a personal message, and I will let you know what my username is, and you can jump right in. In any case, yeah, so I think the idea of that whole free-to-play model changes the game as well. We'll have another weekly ringer about free-to-play, but what I want to say is this. The subscription service being something up and above what everybody else can have, like to be able to play WoW or something like that, I think all of us have experienced the idea that that gets boring after a while, and that you have to put it away and come back. The reason that Xbox Live, something like that, exists is because it's never supposed to get boring. It's constantly refreshing content, and therefore you're supposed to always come back to it. I'm not sure that always happens, but I think that's their idea, right? Okay. Now I'll use that as a segue to jump into my own thoughts. There are plenty of services out there that I don't mind paying for because they are valuable, and I think I share the opinion of many of you in that regard. You know, I am a subscriber to Xbox Live, except what I do is I always buy a year card, And what I do is I wait for the day, and it usually happens maybe once a quarter, where Amazon.com discounts 13 months, 12 or 13 months of Xbox Live for $35. That way I pay $35 and I get the entire year. That's a couple dollars a month, right? If I were paying $60 a month, if I really were paying the $60 a month, then I probably would not be doing it. Because I just don't think it's probably worth that for me. Here's why. I don't play multiplayer. I really don't. The only multiplayer game I play online right now is Tribes Ascend. And that's only because we don't have, although now Minecraft has the capability to do servers out of the main client. That could change everything. I might want to play some Minecraft with you fools before too long. In any case, that's the only real game I play with multiplayer. I'm not interested in playing Halo multiplayer or Call of Duty or any of that other garbage. I don't care. I just don't care. Anything that I probably want to play multiplayer, I'm going to play on the PC, and that doesn't cost me any money to play online. However, I do use Xbox Live for other things. You know, I like that, and you know, I like the idea that it allows me to play Netflix on my Xbox, even though I know you guys have that free on the PlayStation. I do use the content that's up there with some regularity. Although I don't really purchase a lot of stuff. And so now if I can find an alternative where, let's say my TV has Netflix built into it or something like that, or I buy a set-top box that allows you to utilize Netflix because it's got an app on it, like a Roku box, for example, then I think I would probably get rid of Xbox Live because I just don't see a whole lot of value in it. I don't have a ton of friends on it because I don't play multiplayer games. So the people that I know are people that I know around town, you know, people that are real, that are friends of mine. And so I think I get the point what you guys are trying to say about the use values, what I'm trying to say. I don't mind paying for them. But I do think it really begs the question for all of us of how folks are going to charge for stuff in the future. How is an ISP going to become a content engine? And if they become the right kind of content engine, how would I really ever try to use something like Xbox Live? And then you have something like OnLive, which I know has some crazy stuff going on with it right now, but also the Ouya, the Android-based platform, which basically has the same kind of concept, which is you can play games over your internet connection, which is obviously a bandwidth hog, but at the same time, it allows you to play those games for a monthly fee rather than, and that seems to me like a much better option. You know, you're almost just kind of sitting there consuming the product without ever having to buy it. It's like the old rentals, except you don't have to rent the game and you get as many as you want per month. It's like Netflix for gaming, except they give you the hardware as well, which is minimal at that point. So I like to see how that stuff plays out, because I'd like to be able to pay for that kind of a service where I could just throw all that hardware in the garbage, start all over, and just have any game I wanted to play in one place. Now that I can dig. So in the meantime, one of the services I think gets it absolutely 100% right. The best services I've found, number one, Steam. Steam is free, and Steam really is something you can get into, and you can really play a lot of great games and have everything based in the cloud. If you ever lose it or you format your machine, you just put it right back on. No questions asked. Done deal. Right? Right. In terms of pay service, I'm not sure it gets any better than Netflix. I think Netflix does a great job of providing the right amount of content for the right price. I don't know if anybody thinks out there that Netflix is overpriced. I know plenty of people that think it's probably underpriced, which is why they went through the growing pains they've gone through. But in any case, I think Netflix is the ideal for paid service. And I don't have Hulu Plus, but I think Hulu Plus could probably offer the same kind of thing. I'm a little hesitant with Hulu. I just think Netflix does a great job of really delivering television content the way that I want it, without having to kind of tie all the strings to the networks and everything else the way that Hulu does. So, that being said, I think what we've said, what I've said is really what echoes what you guys said, is that I'm willing to pay for services that are valuable, and, you know, it has to be reliable, and it has to be worth the money, you know, to something that if I pay for it, it's going to be there, it's going to be constant, it's going to be online, it's going to be ready to go. If those things are there, then I'm in. If not, goodbye. And in terms of the online subscription service for online games, I've never been a subscription guy, you know, to play online like an MMO. I love Guild Wars. It's my favorite game in terms of MMOs, and it's free to play. You know, you just buy the game, and then it's not really free to play. You buy the game, and then it's free to play on a monthly basis. You know, they get their money from you on the front end, not the back end, and I think that's a much better way to do things. It's very traditional, but I like it. There's also microtransactions if you want to do that, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I think it's cool. All right. Now we got to get into the question for next week. A lot of good stuff going on there, though. I could have gone on for a lot more about a lot of that stuff, but I want to save some of that for. We've got to do a free-to-play weekly ringer here pretty soon because I think that's bubbling up. Everyone wants to talk about that issue, so we're going to talk about it there. Yes. So, guys, I got to tell you something. When you pick up your life and you move to a completely new location, one of the things you probably do quite a bit, at least I have been, is you get nostalgic. You know, you get nostalgic for those old times. Maybe before you even get out. I remember walking around my old place and just picking stuff up and going, "Oh yeah, I remember when this happened with this," or "I remember the moments that were tied to these things," or "I remember when I first got here." Or, and you get really nostalgic for that kind of stuff, and you start to think about the experiences you've had and so on and so forth. So I've been nostalgic, and I started thinking this week about that nostalgia. And it got me thinking about actually some questions that a few of you submitted for me to ask. One of whom was Maze, the other was Matthias. Both submitted questions to me to talk about in the Weekly Ringer in regard to nostalgia. And I thought, what a perfect time to talk about nostalgia than this moment that I'm having in my life where I'm kind of nostalgic for all the stuff that's happened in the past. So it got me thinking about it. Nostalgia is kind of an interesting beast. Nostalgia is a kind of lack of something that you don't have now, but are trying to recapture in some ways, or to chase at least. Maybe if you can't get that experience, to chase that kind of experience in other things. That's kind of my definition. I think that's pretty much the stock definition of nostalgia. And so that leads me to the question that is really kind of an amalgamation of the many questions that were submitted by users about this. And it has to do with kind of nostalgia in gaming. And here's the question, the Weekly Ringer, for next week. Do you think nostalgia is a powerful force in video gaming today? What do I mean by that? I don't mean that you guys feel nostalgia for old games. That's not what I mean. What I want to ask you is, how do you think, do you think people that make games today are really trying to capture that nostalgia? Or do they not really care? If it is a big deal, if it is a force, if it is moving people to do things, then how much? A lot? Too much? Not as much? Not at all. I think those are the answers. The question is, how can you flesh it out? Give me examples. Let me know about if you think, or give me your opinion first on whether you think it really is a force, and then tell me why you think it's a force, or an example of why you think it's a force. Or not, or it's not a force at all. In any case, I look forward to seeing this because I know most of us are here for nostalgic purposes in one way or another. And therefore, I think this really gets to the heart of why we're here at the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and why you all you lovely people are watching me right now. So, anyway, with that in mind, that is the question for next week's Weekly Ringer. Sometimes English is so hard to speak. For next week's Weekly Ringer, thank you very much for watching and commenting. As always, I am the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and there is no reset button.